This is a story of love, betrayal, and greed. A husband and wife. A $23 million inheritance. She saw it as a blessing. He saw it as a way out. One day, they dreamed of a future filled with wealth. The next, she lay on the floor, struggling to breathe. He stood there watching. By the time she reached the hospital, it was too late. When the truth came out, one question remained. How do you destroy the one you love? For money you could have shared. The life of Soraya Langston. 34. Soraya Langston had built her life around helping others. As a social worker in Atlanta, she worked with troubled youth, supported struggling mothers, and gave hope to those who felt invisible. She wasn't just doing a job, helping people was who she was. Her friends described her as kind, loyal, and selfless. She never chased wealth. To her, life was about relationships, not money. Then she met Zaire Hensley. He was confident, ambitious, and full of big dreams. He always had a plan, always talked about success just being around the corner. Soraya believed in him. She admired his drive, his hunger for more. But behind his charm, Zaire was a man running from failure. At 39, he had tried everything: real estate, online businesses, stock trading. Every idea started with excitement and ended in disappointment. He wanted success without struggle, but it never came. In their early years, Soraya stood by him. She encouraged him, even helped financially when his businesses needed just a little more time. But after 6 years, the pattern never changed. They survived on her steady income while he kept chasing an opportunity that never arrived. The unspoken resentment grew between them. Then came the message. A fortune and a trap. It started with a notification on Soraya's phone. A stranger's name. She ignored it at first. But something about the words made her pause. Do you remember me? I'm your uncle, your father's younger brother. An uncle? She had no memory of one. Her father had never mentioned a brother. Curious, she opened the message. The sender's profile was nearly empty. No real details. But then she saw the attachment. A faded old photo. In the foreground, a toddler sat in her father's arms. Her, on her 2nd birthday. She had seen this picture before, years ago. But this time, she noticed something new. A man stood in the background, slightly blurred, watching. The sender claimed to be Frederick Langston. He said he had left the U.S. when she was 2, chasing success overseas. Years passed and he lost touch with family. Now he was looking back and realizing what truly mattered. Family. And he wanted to share his fortune with her. Neither Soraya nor Zaire realized that this so-called blessing would be the beginning of the end. A fortune that cost everything. Blood. That's what mattered in the end. Frederick Langston had spent decades building his fortune, and now he wanted to make things right. Or at least that's what he told Soraya. She didn't know what to think. A long-lost uncle? It sounded impossible. Yet, the old photograph, the details he shared, it all felt real. She had barely known her father's side of the family. And now, here was someone who claimed to be part of it. Someone who wanted to reconnect. So, she let him in. They exchanged messages. Frederick told her about his life in Norway, how he had built an empire in real estate, oil, and shipping. He had everything: mansions, luxury cars, and millions in offshore accounts. But no family, no children, no one to inherit his wealth. And that's why he had been searching for her. Then the impossible happened. A future without worry. Frederick wanted her to have it all. His entire fortune. Over $23 million. It was overwhelming. Too good to be true. But Soraya wanted to believe. And her husband, Zaire, believed it even more. For years, he had chased success. Investments, startups, real estate. None of it ever worked. But this was different. This was fate. At first, he was skeptical. But Frederick reassured him, even spoke to him over the phone. Take care of Soraya, he had said. Make sure she handles the wealth wisely. That was all it took. From that moment on, their lives changed. They stopped worrying about money. The bills, the struggles, none of it mattered anymore. The money was coming. Zaire became obsessed. He browsed luxury real estate listings, planned investments, dreamed of a life where he was finally the man he always wanted to be. Soraya was excited, too, but something about it felt unreal. Then came another message. The twist they never expected. Frederick had fallen critically ill. A few months later, a lawyer named Benedict Koenig contacted Soraya. Frederick had passed away in a private hospital in Norway. His final wish? That everything, his estate, his fortune, go to her. The paperwork was already in motion. Within days, she would receive the full inheritance. Zaire could barely contain his excitement. This was it. The moment they had been waiting for. Then came one last request. The lawyer called again. He and his team would be arriving in the U.S. in 3 days to finalize everything. But there was a problem. Legal fees. Since the money was in Europe, some under-the-table payments were needed to speed things up. Nothing major, just a small sum to cover expenses. The sooner they sent it, the sooner they would be rich. It was standard procedure, the lawyer assured them. Soraya hesitated. Zaire didn't. They wired the money. And just like that, the nightmare began. The price of trust. The lawyer called again, his voice steady, professional. Everything was set in motion. He and his team would be arriving in the United States in 3 days to finalize the transfer of Frederick's fortune. But there was one issue. Legal fees. Since the inheritance was located in Europe, there were bureaucratic hurdles to clear. Some discrete payments had to be made. Processing fees, expedited approvals, and a few under-the-table transactions to ensure a smooth transfer. Nothing unusual, the lawyer assured them. Just a standard procedure for international estates. The sooner we settle these costs, Benedict explained, the sooner we can release the full $23 million to you. Soraya hesitated. Something about it felt off. Why did they need money from her when she was supposed to be the heir? Shouldn't these fees come from the estate itself? She voiced her concerns to Zaire, but he waved them off. This is just part of the process, babe. You don't want to mess this up over a couple of small fees. His excitement was contagious. He was already making plans, what they would buy, where they would travel, how their lives were about to change forever. Against her instincts, Soraya agreed. They wired the money. Days passed. Then weeks. The lawyer stopped responding. The emails bounced back. The phone calls went unanswered. Frederick Langston never existed. Neither did his fortune. And by the time Soraya realized the truth, it was too late. She had lost everything. But Zaire? Zaire had lost something far more dangerous. His patience. And that's when the real nightmare began. A murder for nothing. It moved silently through her system, disguising itself as harmless symptoms. Fatigue, nausea, dizziness. At first, it seemed like the flu, food poisoning, or maybe just exhaustion. But inside her body, the poison was working. It attacked her organs one by one, shutting them down methodically. By the time Soraya was rushed to the hospital, it was too late. The toxin had crystallized in her kidneys. Even if she had survived the night, she would have needed a full kidney transplant to stand a chance. The real question was, how did it get into her system? The autopsy revealed the horrifying truth. Soraya had been poisoned gradually over the course of several days. Someone had been slipping it into her food or drink, increasing the dosage until her body could take no more. And there was only one person who had access to her meals every single day. Her husband, Zaire Hensley. Investigators combed through every piece of evidence, and what they uncovered was chilling. When they seized Zaire's laptop and phone, the first thing they examined was his search history. The results left no room for doubt. How much does a husband inherit after wife dies? Does antifreeze poisoning look like natural causes? How long does it take for ethylene glycol to kill someone? Signs of poisoning that look natural. The searches had started weeks before Soraya's death. Zaire hadn't just imagined a future without his wife. He had planned for it. Detectives traced his financial records and found a key purchase. A cash transaction at a local hardware store 3 weeks before Soraya's death. Security footage confirmed it. There he was, walking straight to the automotive section, picking up multiple bottles of antifreeze. No hesitation. No browsing. Straight to the poison. Forensic teams searched their home, testing everything Soraya had recently consumed. In the kitchen, inside her favorite coffee mug, they found traces of ethylene glycol, the toxic compound in antifreeze. She had been drinking her own death every morning. Inside the garage, detectives found an open bottle of the exact same antifreeze brand from the hardware store receipt. A clear connection, a timeline, a method, a murderer, the inheritance that never was. While one team focused on proving Soraya's murder, another dug into the so-called inheritance. What they uncovered was even more shocking. The long-lost uncle, Frederick Langston? He didn't exist. There were no records of him in Norway, no business empire, no fortune, no bank accounts, and most importantly, no inheritance. The entire thing had been an elaborate scam. The photo Soraya received, showing her uncle in the background of her second birthday? Forgery. Forensic analysts pulled the original from her social media. The man in the background had never been there. The scammers had edited him in, fabricating a past that never existed. The European lawyers, Benedict Koenig and Lars Winter? Fake. Interpol confirmed that these same aliases had been linked to international fraud cases in Spain, Germany, Switzerland, and the US. There was no estate, no legal team, no money. It had all been a cruel con. And Zaire had fallen for it. The confession. With the evidence stacked against him, Zaire was brought in for interrogation. For hours, he denied everything. I loved my wife. Why would I hurt her? I never bought antifreeze. Soraya was sick. Maybe it was something she ate. But the detectives weren't interested in his lies. They laid out the truth, the search history, the hardware store receipt, the antifreeze in the garage, the traces in her coffee mug. You did all this for money. A pause. But there was no inheritance. Silence. Zaire's face drained of color. The lawyers, fake. The uncle, fake. The money, it never existed. Panic crept into his eyes. No, 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 no. That can't be right. But it was. He had killed his wife for nothing. A woman who trusted him, loved him, believed in him, and now she was gone. Forever. Took another 3 hours before he broke down. I just wanted to give us a better life. Then, finally, the confession. He had poisoned Soraya with antifreeze, a slow-acting toxin that mimics alcohol poisoning. He had wanted her out of the way so he could collect the money and start over. But it wasn't just about the inheritance. Zaire had been having an affair. A younger woman, someone new, someone who had no idea what he had planned. Detectives brought her in for questioning. She was horrified. She had nothing to do with it, just another pawn in Zaire's game. Now, with nowhere left to run, Zaire was out of lies. From the moment the trial began, the truth was clear. Zaire Hensley killed his wife over money that never existed. The lead prosecutor, AUSA Malik Whitmore, wasted no time in exposing him for what he was. This is not a crime of passion. This is not self-defense. This is cold-blooded greed. A jury didn't take long to decide his fate. Life in prison. No chance of parole. Zaire had spent his entire life chasing fortune, scheming for wealth, dreaming of a future built on someone else's suffering. And in the end, he lost everything, including his freedom. The trial, piece by piece. The prosecution laid out their case methodically, dismantling every lie Zaire had told. Evidence was introduced piece by piece, each revelation tightening the noose around his fate. On a large screen, the jury was shown the most damning proof of all, his own Google searches. How much does a husband inherit after his wife dies? How to make antifreeze poisoning look natural? Symptoms of ethylene glycol poisoning? Fastest way to kill someone without getting caught? A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The intent was unmistakable. Then came the surveillance footage Zaire inside a hardware store, walking straight to the automotive section, purchasing multiple bottles of antifreeze. The timestamp? 3 weeks before Soraya's death. There was no hesitation in the video, no browsing, just a man on a mission. And then the murder weapon. A forensic analyst took the stand, holding up a photograph of Soraya's favorite coffee mug. Traces of ethylene glycol were found inside, the analyst confirmed. The jury sat in stunned silence. Soraya had unknowingly swallowed death, sip by sip, every morning. The motive, greed and betrayal. But why? The prosecution made it clear, money. Or at least what Zaire thought was money. An FBI financial expert testified, revealing that there were no records of Frederick Langston. No long-lost uncle. No fortune. No legal team. Nothing. It had been a scam from the start. But Zaire never questioned it. He just saw an opportunity and took it. But there was more. The affair. Text messages between Zaire and his mistress were presented to the court, revealing another layer of deception. He was planning a future with her. A future without Soraya. But the most damning part? He never told his mistress about the inheritance. He had planned to take the money and disappear. His entire life had become a lie, stacked on top of another lie, until it all collapsed. The final blow. Then, the prosecution called their final witness. Jamari Devine. She walked to the stand, tears in her eyes. She had known Soraya since college. She had watched her fall in love, get married, dream of a future. And now, she was here to testify against the man who stole all of that away. The prosecutor stepped forward. When did Soraya first tell you about the inheritance? Jamari took a deep breath. About a month before she died. And what was her reaction? She wanted to believe it. Jamari's voice wavered. But she had doubts. The courtroom was silent. Soraya had suspected something was wrong. She just hadn't realized the true danger until it was too late. Justice served. The truth had been laid bare. Zaire Hensley was not a grieving husband. He was a cold, calculating killer who poisoned his wife for an inheritance that never existed. He had sacrificed the woman who trusted him, all for greed, only to discover he had killed her for nothing. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Their verdict was unanimous. Guilty. Zaire showed no emotion as the sentence was read. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. But for those who had loved Soraya, there was no real victory. No amount of justice could bring her back. She had been a woman full of life, with dreams, with love to give. And in the end, she was betrayed by the person she trusted most. As the courtroom emptied, Jamari Devine stood outside, holding back tears. She deserved so much more than this. And she did. Soraya Hensley would never see the future she had dreamed of. But her story, her tragic and unnecessary death, became a cautionary tale. A reminder that greed destroys, that blind trust can be deadly, and that sometimes the most dangerous person in your life is the one standing right beside you.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more